By the late 2000s, the golden age of Need for Speed was starting to feel like a thing of the past. To understand why Hot Pursuit 2010 was such a revelation, you have to understand the mess that preceded it. Black Box, who gave us phenomenal titles such as Underground 2, Most Wanted, and Pro Street, was essentially running on fumes. Their latest title, Need for Speed Undercover, may have sold well, but was a critical failure and left a blemish on an otherwise phenomenal record. Development was getting more complicated, and no longer could one studio support the yearly releases that EA demanded. So EA began handing the series out to other developers. Need for Speed Shift was the first of these games developed by Slightly Mad Studios. It's a solid enough game, I enjoyed my time with it. It leaned further into that simulation category than any other game before it, and I think because of that, it sort of lacked the identity of a Need for Speed game. Shortly after that, Need for Speed Nitro launched. Developed by EA Montreal, Nitro deviated even further from the Need for Speed identity, with exaggerated body styles, goofy character models, and motion controls. Yeah. Ew. My point being, the Need for Speed series was in an identity crisis, and it desperately needed a developer to right the ship. Enter Criterion Games, the masterminds behind EA's other successful arcade racer, Burnout. At this point, they could have easily just slapped Need for Speed on a Burnout title and called it a day. But instead, Criterion decided to reboot the classic, with their own signature DNA plastered all over it. The result was Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. But as we look back on it 16 years later, the question remains. Did it actually work? Was this a successful reboot? Or was this just another chapter in the franchise's struggle to find itself? Let's dive in. My name is Mercy, and today I'm playing Need for Speed Hot Pursuit for the first time in years. Enjoy. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit released on November 16th, 2010 for PS3, Xbox 360, Wii, and PC. But today I'll be showcasing the game from Hot Pursuit Remastered, which released on November 6th, 2020 for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. The differences between the original game and the remaster are fairly minimal, I would say, and the remaster comes with all 3 of the DLCs, so that's what I chose to play for this video. But before we deep dive into the game, I'd like to first talk to you about today's video sponsor, Manta Sleep. After I've been gaming for a while, my eyes start to feel pretty tired, and I need some time away from my computer. I'm someone who needs total darkness when I sleep, and Manta Sleep's premium sleeping masks are exactly what I need, helping me get to sleep quickly. These masks have deep eye cups that rest around your eyes and don't put any strain on your actual eyeballs, giving you a total light-free seal. They have tons of options too, from warm and cool masks, weighted ones, and even a mask with small flat speakers in it. This one right here. If you'd like to check out Manta Sleep's catalog of masks or other awesome pro sleep products, check them out using the link in the pinned comment below or by using code MERCY10 at checkout for 10% off your entire order. Trust me, you can thank me later. Thank you again to Manta Sleep for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get back to the video. Yeah, smooth. Unlike me, this game wastes no time in getting you right into the action. Hot Pursuit takes place in the countryside of Seacrest County. The entire world is a series of connected highways and winding back roads that enable the kind of gameplay Hot Pursuit has. That is, one with fast cars, big drifts, and chaotic combat. You load in, and after a short video, you're thrust into one of 2 potential pathways. On one side, you're the racer, the other side, you're the cop. The racer campaign starts off easy enough, just simple point-to-point races against the AI. It's not until a little later on where the cops are introduced where this game really starts to shine. The cops in this game are pretty ruthless. They're designed in a way to catch back up to you, and so they'll always be around you, harassing you, making your day more difficult. They'll tell you just to push you into a corner, or maybe they'll corner bomb you going Mach 5. You just don't always know. And beyond just worrying about the cop cars themselves, the cops have a few different tools they can deploy to slow you down and eventually stop you. The most common one has to be the spike strip. These are pretty easy to spot because the cops have a tendency to pull way out in front of you and try to align with you before they deploy them. Best case scenario, you can kind of recognize this and not follow them so closely. Another common tool they use are roadblocks. where there's one little spot in it to fit your car through, but if you hit the cops anywhere else at speed, it results in a crash. Now, a crash doesn't automatically mean you have to restart an event, but it certainly makes it harder to win, and it takes a big chunk out of your health. They can also deploy a helicopter, which will throw out a spike strip way ahead of you, and the last tool they have is an EMP, which is basically a weapon that needs to lock onto its target, and when it finally hits, it kind of just sort of knocks you loose off of your path and takes away some of your health. It's not like a crazy high damage weapon, but it does have more range than any of the other ones. So you can imagine how chaotic each race can get when you consider that you'll have multiple cops on your tail, each one with weapons, all while you're racing to win events. It's nuts. But that doesn't mean you're helpless, and as a racer you have some tools to fight back with. Spike strips and EMPs carry over, but you also have a jammer, which will cancel out police weapons and cause them to be harder to track you. It is also the undisputed GOAT when you're stuck on a long straight road with a cop locking his EMP onto you. The final one though has to be my favorite tool in the entire game, the turbo. The turbo gives you a huge speed boost and puts a massive grin on my face every time I popped it. The camera will pull back, the wind noise starts to muffle the music, the motion blur on the screen is intensified, especially around the edges. It is such a badass feeling to pop this. I believe it's mostly here as a catch-up mechanic, but knowing that just kind of intensified the feelings of being a badass I had while I was leading with one of these in my back pocket. But none of this matters without a goal, without structure, and Hot Pursuit thankfully keeps it pretty simple. Your only goal in Hot Pursuit is to climb the ranks, and almost everything you do, from clean overtakes to driving on the wrong side of the road to drifting, earns you bounty. Bounty is just another word for XP, and that feeds into either that racer level or your cop level, and as you earn more bounty, you gain access to more cars and more powerful weapons. So for example, early on, a level 1 spike strip only throws out 1 strip, whereas a level 3 will now throw out 2 strips, and I think they last longer on the road. And for the EMP, the lock-on time is just greatly reduced as you level it up. But for me, it's all about the longer duration and intensity of that turbo, once again. I mean, the sense of speed in Hot Pursuit is just, it's phenomenal. It may not be apparent with those early game cars, but the late game cars paired with the turbo, it becomes evidently clear why the game's tracks are designed the way that they are. Since this takes place across the countryside, you're going to be driving on long, windy, seemingly endless wide highways. Seacrest County is so pretty too, with all kinds of mountain passes and dense forested areas and beachside coastal roads. I understand that this is a remaster, but I've seen the original. It's still a good looking game today. But I gotta admit, I came into this pretty skeptical, knowing that I tend to lean more towards those packed, closed circuit type urban environments in racing games. But I very quickly realized that with this game's physics, that just wouldn't work. And the devs worked extra hard to make these rural environments interesting. Cars in Hot Pursuit feel very heavy. Even the snappier late game cars have a bit of what could be perceived as input delay. I found it pretty difficult to make quick adjustments on the fly, but it sort of works to the game's advantage when it comes to drifting. This game has a brake to drift system, which I didn't realize was controversial until recently. But tapping the brake causes the car to break grip, and then you can swing the car sideways. I'm terrible at drifting in more simulation-related titles. I will be the first to admit that. I'm sure you guys have seen that in my videos by now. But this system, it just feels right for an arcade racer. It's just plain old fun. It feels like drifting in a Burnout game, really, just with the cars maybe not being as nimble this time around. Not that that's a bad thing, just an observation. This drifting system doesn't always require small adjustments. You kind of just tap the brake and swing it to the side and send it. These are full send, full throttle drifts across huge turns, some tighter than others. It's just a sight to behold, and you feel like a total badass when you pull one of these off. There's this one track with these exit ramps that spin around in a circle that just keep going on and on and on, so I made it a personal mission to drift the entire length of that road every time I came up to it. Even better is when I managed to drift the entire section with the turbo. That was insane the first time I did it. I don't care how fast or how slow I was going, it felt like I was drifting in the Speed Racer movie. If I had to nitpick the track layouts in Hot Pursuit, I'd probably point out the long straightaways, but come on, it's a highway. You're going to have these long straightaways. So the issue really becomes, how do we spice these up? And that's where we move on to the modes of Hot Pursuit. Let me explain. So the game has 10 total modes, with 2 of them locked to multiplayer. More on that later. I've already discussed Hot Pursuit, where the racers are racing to win, and the cops are trying to shut the race down before the racers make it to the finish line. It makes up a good chunk of both the cop and racer campaigns. There's also time trial for the racers, and for the cops it's called First Response. But it's pretty much the same thing between the two. They've also brought back preview events, so these are time trials that are locked to a car available later in the game. I have always liked these events. They give you a little taste of what's to come in the future, a little something to keep you chugging along and playing. There are also duels, so these are the 1v1 races between you and one other car without cops. There's also a 1v1 mode where you play as the cop, trying to take down the racer called Interceptor. Point being, there are less modes than it appears at a glance, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Almost all of the modes are very fun, but I just found the time trials as both racers and cops to be kind of out of place. It just deviates too far from the core gameplay, and that core gameplay is why I would pick Hot Pursuit over many of the other games in the series. I would dread every time I'd have to do one of these. They kind of just seemed like filler, like they needed something silly to spice them up. Maybe they could have a mode where you had unlimited turbo. Imagine having to put down a hot lap with traffic with turbo the entire time. I don't know, I just felt like I was going through the motions with these events, and I couldn't wait to get them over with so I could continue to the real meat and potatoes of the game, Hot Pursuit. Now, I not only say this because it's the literal name of the game, but Hot Pursuit, the mode, showcases everything Hot Pursuit, the game, has to offer in one package. The long sweeping corners, bobbing and weaving through traffic, racing against other exotic cars, escaping the cops, and of course, the most important part of any Criterion game, the level of chaos and destruction. This is where I think most people are going to make the comparisons to Burnout. The most apparent inclusion being the crash cams, which, come on, how can you not love these? Sure, the destruction isn't as detailed as Burnout or even some of the previous Need for Speed titles, and sure, sometimes the game will put you in a bad spot after watching the crash cam, but just look at it. Something about pausing the race to sit there and watch a multi-thousand-pound steel machine flip through the air awakens something in me. I don't know what it is. That's not to say that the destruction is bad though. You can really bust up the glass and taillights get knocked out. It's not great. It's somewhere in the middle. Solid, I would say. It's not quite on the level of Pro Street, which in my eyes has the best destruction this series had seen up until this point, and definitely not on the level of a Burnout, but it's solid. While we're on this topic, let's talk about the cars. Hot Pursuit has a very diverse roster, much more so than the earlier Hot Pursuit titles, and maybe even more than the black box games. There are, of course, updated versions of series staples like the Mazda RX-8, Dodge Charger, and Nissan 370Z, but also classic supercars like the Lamborghini Diablo SV, Porsche 911 Turbo, and of course the McLaren F1, which have all made appearances in those early titles. For one of the rarest cars in the world, it sure does seem to make a ton of appearances in this series. Seeing all of the police car variants of these high-end supercars is just so silly to me. Imagine the kind of budget a police department would need to have a single Bugatti variant in it, let alone an entire fleet of them. There are just too many cool high-end supercars to talk about in this video, so I'll narrow it down to just my top car in the entire game, the McLaren MP412C. Maybe it's not the best performing car in the game, but just look at it. When you look like that and sound the way that it does, I don't even care. I will learn to live with its shortcomings. Here, take a little listen to it and a few other of my favorites. Yeah, I mean, incredible. And speaking of that sound, the soundtrack here ranks among the best in the entire series. As soon as I booted the game up and heard Edge of the Earth by 30 Seconds to Mars, I knew that this would be peak. It's just this phenomenal mix of alternative, garage rock, electronic, and hip-hop. But somehow it all coalesces into this big, energetic, angsty soundtrack that complements Hot Pursuit's gameplay perfectly. I'm more of a rock and metal guy, but I can appreciate when songs from other genres fit the vibe. Some of my favorites here are Edge of the Earth, of course, as well as Ruling Me by Weezer, Watercolor by Pendulum, Conscience Killer by Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, The Resistance by Bad Religion, Yeah 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 by New Politics, and of course, Cinema by Benny Benassi. What a classic. And these songs barely even scratch the surface. Even the songs I didn't really care for or didn't list here, I never had this thought of like, ugh, here's the song again, gotta get through it. So yeah, great soundtrack, one of the best in the entire series, and as always, if you would like to listen to this soundtrack for yourself, I linked the full playlist in the description below. Finally, let's talk about multiplayer, because this is actually one of the few games featured on this channel to still have servers up. Kinda sad when you think about it. The thing with Hot Pursuit is that it is truly a never offline game. Hot Pursuit introduced Autolog, which is like Need for Speed's social network in a way. It allows you to very quickly see your friends' records on each and every event, so just getting that gold medal on an event didn't mean that that was the end of it. If you're like me, you probably have some absolutely insane pro players on your friends list, and so it got to a point where I didn't fight too hard for the top spot. But for those events where I did place highly, oh boy, I rubbed it in their face as much as I could. I'm petty like that. And it turns an otherwise one-dimensional single-player game into a social interaction, something that can be talked about with your friends and your community, and I just think that's beautiful. Now, as cool as Autolog is, this game also has legitimate traditional PvP multiplayer. And since we're playing the remastered version, we have crossplay across every platform, so this is awesome. To properly showcase this, I asked my Discord community to come together for a few games, so thank you to everybody who came out to help me with this. Those names are all listed in the description and on the screen now, and if you'd like to join the community and help with future videos, we would love to have you. The link to the Discord is also in the description. Okay, so I want to primarily focus on the multiplayer exclusive modes. Yeah, there's exclusive modes, of which there are two. Let's start with Arms Race, which is a point-to-point race with all players being racers. Except now we have an abundance of weapons. I'm talking 6 spike strips, 6 EMPs, 6 jammers, 6 turbos. Yeah, they stack you up with weapons. And whoever crosses that finish line first wins. There are AI police here, but they're very minimal, and I didn't find they changed the outcome of many races. This mode is kind of fun, but I do think it could have been improved or changed. I wish it was more involved than just more weapons, you know? Like, once you fall behind, you have so few ways to catch back up. It's not like you can throw spike strips ahead of you, and with EMPs, you have to see the car in front of you and be within range. So this ends up kind of devolving into everyone who's kind of fallen behind. They end up just battling amongst each other, and the leader pulls away for the victory. It's fun with friends, just messing with your boys, getting in their head, talking trash, but once you've lost a draft of the top few guys, it's pretty much over. This mode is already so silly and reminiscent of a kart racer. I would have liked to have seen some way to reel the leader back in. Maybe not like a literal blue shell like Mario Kart, but maybe some kind of rubber band mechanic. Give us in the back a speed boost, or limit the leader's speed, or maybe throw more obstacles in their way, just something to make it more difficult for them to hold on to that lead. I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into it. At the end of the day, it's a blast with your friends, and that's really all that matters. Now, the second mode, Most Wanted, is much more involved. How this works is that one of the racers is marked as the most wanted, and the other racers have to work together to shield him from the cops. The cops' goal is to either bust or wreck the most wanted driver. What results is usually chaos. This might just be the best mode in the entire game. I found that this mode was super fun when the most wanted was maybe a slower driver, and then there was someone who knew what they were doing acting like a bodyguard, and the other two racers kind of hung around and just harassed the cops. It makes it so the most wanted driver can't just coast to victory, driving away from everyone else. They need help. This mode adds some strategy and teamwork to the racer team too, which I do like. No other mode in this game does this. Teamwork is usually reserved for the cops, and the racers are competing against each other and the cops. What makes this mode really different from the others though, is the fact that it's the only mode in the entire game that utilizes the entire map. Yeah, all of Seacrest County is here and drivable. You kind of just pick the starting location. This results in some big wrecks, full send moments, with the most wanted commanding where everybody goes. Also, map knowledge ends up playing a huge role in this, because you can go wherever the hell your little heart desires. As a cop, you can kind of outmaneuver and outplay the most wanted if you have this knowledge. I'm not quite there yet, and definitely not one of those people, so for the time being, Hot Pursuit is still my preferred mode to play online, but I think Most Wanted is super fun and it's different, so I appreciate it. Nothing beats a traditional multiplayer experience to me. I love multiplayer games and I'm happy that I've been able to experience this in the way that I have. Highly recommend it just for the multiplayer. In conclusion, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, as far as I'm concerned, put Need for Speed back on the map. This was exactly what the series needed. In a time of mediocrity and repeat duds, the series not only needed a hit, but a home run, and Criterion knocked this one clean out of the park. It not only touched on nostalgia by throwing it back to a pre-Black Box era formula, but also successfully appealed to a more modern audience with features and conveniences that make this the definitive Need for Speed Hot Pursuit game. This is such a fun game with a high skill ceiling, but also accessible enough for a caveman like me to have a good time. If you've never played Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, do yourself a favor and go get yourself a copy right now. I'm so serious, like turn this video off, go buy a copy. You won't regret it. This is easily among the best in the series. Unfortunately though, I can't say the same for the next few entries, but that's a topic for another video. Get subscribed if you're interested in that. Enough about me though, it's time to turn it over to you guys. What do you think of Need for Speed Hot Pursuit? Is it the definitive Hot Pursuit game, or did you prefer one of the older ones? Let me know down in the comments. I try to read every comment posted. Before I go, a huge shout out to my highest tier Patreon member, Arcade Racing Central, as well as all of my supporters over on Patreon. You guys are awesome. My name is Mercy, and as always, have a good one.